Welcome back, troglodytes, to the Trogly's Guitar Show. This is one thick SG. I'm gonna go ahead and place my bet that 95% of the viewing audience has never heard of this model before because it's a really obscure one that only lived for about 2 years, and it's just kind of a way for Gibson to use up parts. This is the 1980 Gibson SG R1. It was later renamed the SG Artist in 1981, and then they were eventually discontinued in 1982. There were approximately 200 of these things made, and if you've heard of the Artist series guitars before now, you know what is inside this. You've got the Moog electronics. Gibson first started toying around with Moog electronics inside of their guitars in 1977, first starting with the RD Custom and RD Artist series guitars. From there, it moved on to the Les Paul Artist, and then a 335 Artist, and then there's the little-known versions like the SG Artist and the Sonics Artist, believe it or not. That one had a set neck similar to the GGC 700 version of the Sonics, and they're also made of real wood instead of those rosin bodies. But there's basically 3 different levels of these active electronics that you can have. You have the top tier versions, which are, believe it or not, the Sonics Artist, the 335, and the Les Paul. Those have 3 different options. They give you a compression, expansion, and brightness switch. Then you have your middle tier, which only has compression and expansion. And then you get your bottom tier, boring SG Artist. It only got the expansion switch. But now to explain the title of the video, this is a thick SG. In order to make room for the Moog electronics, they actually had to make the body thicker than normal. So we'll pop on over to this 84 SG Standard. This poor thing hasn't had a review for itself yet, but it's been featured in 2 other videos. But this illustrates just how much thicker this guitar is. Now, it's not necessarily thicker along the horns, it just doesn't quite have those beveled edges, so it appears a lot thicker. But as you get closer to the body, I did the measurements for the butts of these guitars, and this one has a 1/4 inch thicker behind. Something else that's nice about the SG Artist, though, is it does have a large comfort cut on the side of the guitar that the original SGs don't necessarily have. So this large body, is it comfortable? I think I'd prefer a traditional SG body shape, but it does kind of help combat neck dive because you've got a little bit more weight into the body. So if you've always hated SGs because they're a little bit too thin and you feel they're gonna break, maybe seek one of these things out. They're not super expensive because most people don't know about them, and to be honest with you, the Moog electronics in these things, they're not very nice sounding. I know on the Les Paul version, there's one switch I like, and if I remember correctly, it's the compression one because it kind of gives you a nice bluesy tone to it. But you really have to sit down with these active electronics and dial out a sound that's good. So I don't want you to come away from this video thinking, okay, all Artist guitars are terrible. You just have to know how to tweak them to get those really nice usable tones. So this guitar is a thick mahogany body with a mahogany neck, and you do get a sweet ebony fretboard with dot inlays. The headstock has a mother of pearl Gibson logo as well as the crown, so this is essentially an SG special from the late 70s. It's got pretty much the same specs except for the larger body. If you need to learn about an SG special, check out this video. Now this one, it has replaced electronics. These are DiMarzio pickups. I think they're super distortions, something like that. There were no markings on the back. You have a stock harmonica bridge and a tailpiece. And as I referred to earlier, this is your expansion switch. You push it this way and it's on, this way it's off. It's not a 3-way toggle, it's only 2. But this is your 3-way toggle switch for your pickups. Now, this switch is a lot stiffer than a normal 3-way. And since these pickups have been replaced, I'm not sure if somebody decided to wire it up different than how you would normally see, or if they messed up the wiring or something. But this middle switch is a standby position. It cuts the sound completely out of the guitar, which, you know, it could be a good thing if you're a gigging musician and you don't want a middle position. But other than that, it's a standard wiring setup. Up position is the neck, and then the farthest one down is the bridge. And you're gonna notice, ooh, what's going on here? Notice your knobs are backwards from what they normally are. The way this one is wired is this is your neck pickup's volume, and this is your neck pickup's tone. And then similarly, this is the bridge pickup volume and the bridge pickup tone. Now originally this instrument would not have been wired like this. Somebody has definitely replaced the pots in here, because you would normally see two regular style master volume master tones that go from 0 to 10, and then the extra two switches would help control the Moog electronics. They go from -5 to 5. So the way it's wired now, the Moog electronics in this, they're very bright because you have no way to control it. So I really do think it'd be best at this point in time just to take them out and then wire up the pickups properly. Because right now it sounds like they might have been wired in single coil split mode. I'm guessing these were flipped like that in order to make room for the Moog electronics on the inside. Because as you can see, it takes up a pretty good chunk of this guitar. If you've ever seen the backside of an RD Artist, it goes all the way up the back too. And those are pretty large guitars. Something else these instruments have going for them is they are Kalamazoo made. And this one's kind of got an interesting date of production. New Year's Day, 1980. Think about it. That is the very first day of a brand new decade. You're finally leaving the 70s and starting the 80s. I can just imagine that guy who has to change the numbers on the serial number stamper going, this is a big day. I finally get to change that leading 7 to an 8. What kind of show's Gibson running though, making them work New Year's Day? So would I suggest an SG-R1 or the SG Artist? Not really. This guitar, even with the new pickups in it, once the Moog board is put in there, it just makes this guitar sound really bright. It's not necessarily something that I find pleasing to the ears. However, a popular modification for these things is to rip that out, sell them separately, and put, nice pickups in here. But I think what needs to be done for this one to turn it into a rock monster is disconnect the Moog board and just wire it up traditionally. So as far as the thick body goes, yeah, it's cool, but I'm not a huge fan of the stock electronics, based on my experience of other artist guitars. So now that we've learned a little bit more about the SG-R1 Artist, let's go ahead and hear how this one sounds. Now that we know how this instrument sounds, let's go ahead and review its condition. Overall, this instrument is not in too bad of shape. As far as the headstock goes, you've just got some minor string change scratches and just average usage wear. At the D string tuner, you can see the lacquer's kind of bubbling around the washer, so that will eventually chip, and I do want you to know about it. Truss rod is perfectly functional. Your frets only show very minor wear. I just cleaned and oiled this ebony fretboard, so it is good to go. You've got nice dot inlays. It kind of matches the vibe of the guitar. And having a thicker body means your neck joint is going to be stronger. So if you're worried about your SG breaking, find one of these things. You've got lots of polishing scratches and swirls on the black finish. That's just part of owning a black guitar. I used some Virtuoso guitar cleaner on this one. It did wonders. So now you can see these small impressions, because this had like dried snot or something on it right here. It was kind of disgusting. I usually just use Goo Gone to clean these things, but I whipped out the professional stuff for this one. Now your knobs. Only this one is a vintage knob. I think most of these came with black speed knobs, so I'm not quite sure what's going on here. But you have 3 modern style and 1 vintage looking one. And your original black and white switch tips. Again, you've got DiMarzio pickups in this one with your stock harmonica bridge and tailpiece. Back of the headstock, serial number 80010095. That's a whole lot of zeros. So that means New Year's Day, 1980, the 95th guitar stamped that day. And coincidentally, it's also a second. So does that mean it's the second SG artist made? No, it means it's a factory second. And what that means is there was a small, tiny little finish blemish when it was new. Something as small as this, like a ding on the wing right here. That's exactly what would get it stamped second. But seeing as this model was introduced in 1980, this is probably one of the first ones made. I mean, it's not a prototype or anything, you can't prove it, but based on the available evidence, I would say the first day of 1980 is a pretty darn good bet it's an early one. You do still have the volute. You've got about 2 years left for that. You've got a nice 60s rounded neck profile. So basically what that means is it's thin, but it's got a little bit of roundedness to it that makes it feel a little bit larger. So definitely not a huge neck by any means. And it is a mahogany neck, a 3-piece mahogany neck to be exact. The back of the instrument here, it's in pretty clean shape. You do have some buckle worming marks, especially around that area right here. But, I mean, most of the back of this guitar is covered by the back plates. You will need a 9-volt battery for this thing to operate as it sits now. What's kind of nice about this design is you can just take these 2 screws out, and then that lifts up so you can change the battery out. So besides some buckle worming and light scratches on the back, you're in pretty decent shape here. The neck joint is all good. We'll take a quick look around these thick sides. We've got your original strap buttons yet. I mean, overall, this thing cleaned up really well. It was definitely filthy when I got it, but I'm glad I invested some time into this. So let's see it under Blacklight. Under Blacklight, here you can see what I was talking about with those knobs. This is clearly an era-correct knob, but I can't guarantee it was originally for this guitar. In fact, I'm going to say it's not. It just happens to be old. Then you've got 3 modern ones. But everything else on the face of this guitar is looking pretty good as far as the Blacklight test goes. Take a look around the edges here. Ooh, we've got something right here. Now what this looks like to me is a lot of clear coat wear. I mean, it could also potentially be a touch-up of some nature. We'll have to look at that again under normal lighting. Alright, it looks like the finish has been scuffed up by like a guitar strap or a stand. Maybe even somebody's pants if it was resting against their leg like that. So I'm going to go ahead and say that's just clear coat worn off through to the black finish. That's what's great about these Blacklight tests. You can't see that stuff with the naked eye. Sometimes you need a sophisticated test like this to see things like that. the back of the instrument here. Everything is looking pretty darn good. Take a look up the neck. Everything's looking good here, no surprises. And the face of the headstock is good. This instrument does come with its original Gibson Generation 2 chainsaw case. What's kind of cool is the original receipt is actually inside here. You've got all 3 plastic latches on this one, which is great. And you have a nice padded handle yet. It's not deteriorating like sometimes will happen. You've got some stickers and general wear and tear. And on the inside here, you can see the interior could use re-glued a little bit. And the hinges do still support the lid, but they're getting close to that point where the lid's just gonna flop over. So you're either gonna wanna reinstall some type of lid ribbon right here, or just be, nice to your lid. But you can definitely see this is the original case to this instrument. It's got that impression of it. Now inside of this compartment, as I said, the original receipt was in here. But here's a hint. If you ever get one of these chainsaw cases, look underneath here. I find so many cool things. Like just right now, I found a pick. Another pick. Another pick. Another pick. Another pick. I mean, there's a lot of hiding spaces back here. Once I actually found one of the 50th anniversary belt buckles, and it's like, oh my goodness, the guy didn't even know we had it. I'm keeping these picks, by the way. They're not included. But that's where I found this. It's the original receipt. We'll take a quick look at it here. It looks like it was sold at a Rainbow Music. I doubt his phone number still works, but it was purchased. It looks like it says May 30th of 1980 to a James Henry. He was located in New York. And the original sales price was $440. So that means these were priced about the same as a VSG. And honestly, on the used market, they are worth about the same today. But you can see it says with hard shell case, and that's likely referring to this one. So, a cool little piece of history. I mean, this case itself is worth at least $200 on its own, so it's a very nice add-on. If you think you might be interested in owning this rare, but not necessarily highly desirable, Gibson SG R1 Artist, feel free to check out the link in the description that will take you to the Reverb for Sale ad. Thank you, Troglodytes, for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you on the next episode. Take care.